What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you maybe can see, things are a little bit different here in the office. So if you guys kind of like this camera setup, just let me know in the comment section below. I would appreciate it. What we're going to do is touch on some of the trades I did from today and from yesterday. Yesterday was a losing day of 10,000. Today I made 2,400. After commission, it's really like probably $2,000 because I paid for a lot of shares to short. So I ended up making $2,000 today, essentially. $10,000 loss yesterday, unfortunately. Having tons of platform issues yesterday and today to the point where we couldn't even really manage our trading room properly because my computers were just running so slow. So if you see, I now have 6 monitors connected, yet only 5 of them work, and I think that's an issue with the cables. So I ordered new cables. So running 6 screens now, and with all the charting and different indicators and things that I use on my charts, just running 6 of them with that many screens was really, it seemed like bogging down my thinkorswim platform. So the last 2 days were really impossible to really trade as soon as market opened. I was able to trade fine pre-market, then market open to roll around, and then it got all iffy, and it was just really hard to manage my day from that point. So I ended up taking a loss yesterday, 10 grand. So we're going to start there with QuantumScape, all right? So QuantumScape here, just put it this way. Yesterday, we started going long. It's hard to say for sure, but anyways, we started longing like here, and we longed, and we basically kept buying the bottoms, and we just never got a bounce. So basically, was buying a falling knife that really wasn't meant to bounce. So for many of you guys that follow me, you know that I like to kind of be first in a move, and I think that's the way you should go about trading, is trying to be first into a move, buying the bottoms. But yesterday was a day where I just didn't successfully pick a bottom. It just wanted to keep selling down. So the play we went for yesterday would normally work, 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10. It would normally work. And then today was the day that it just didn't. So this is just one of those situations where you do what you normally would do, but it wasn't the right time to be doing it. And then you keep going into it like it's supposed to be, and then it's not. So essentially bought long yesterday, pre-market, QuantumScape, thinking it would bounce because we're coming into long-term trending supports, but the selling pressure was uniquely strong and just really drove the stock down. It ended up bouncing a little bit today, but either way, what we ended up doing was going long like in this section here, added more long here, and then added more long into the 50s, and then eventually just closed out the trade for a loss. So if I may, let me pull up the yearly chart on the screen here on the right. It'll probably be a little bit different, but essentially we were starting to long yesterday as this kind of gap down, and let me pull up the 4-hour chart. Will do us more justice here. So we started going long yesterday, pretty much right around like 67. And our final support was at about 50, and we even cracked that. So it was just one of these stocks that just threw us for a lot of confusion. But we were coming down into what was, I believed, long-term trending support, and it just didn't hold up, and we kept kind of flushing out yesterday. So what we were going for was sort of a trade that we saw on Fubo today. If I'll show you Fubo, it might make more sense what we were explaining, what we were trying to do. All right, if you look at Fubo, you see how Fubo bounced? You see this big bounce move? That's what we were trying to capture on QuantumScape, but we were just too soon. Just too early. So this is the moment where we were just too early on QuantumScape, and that's pretty much it. So we wanted to trade QuantumScape just like you saw Fubo. Fubo crashed all the way down here and bottom picked this day and then run a nice trade. That's what we tried to do, but it didn't work. So ended up getting pretty much crushed yesterday on QuantumScape. Now the other losing trade I had was on Riot that we'll cover really quickly. So if you look at Riot, I opened up a short trade on Riot yesterday, and the price that I opened up the short, my average was like right here. I'm gonna put a blue line here. That was basically my average yesterday on Riot. Okay, yeah. So I ended up losing like $4,000 on this. So I had 5,000 shares short on Riot, and I thought it was going to come down in the day, which it did come down. So I went short, and I was short with an average price around here. It squeezed all the way up here, and I was eventually like, you know what? I just can't. I just don't want to. I can't take it. If it squeezes up a little bit more, that's going to be 10 grand. So I was just over leveraged. I won't even say over leveraged, right? The move just looked aggressive. It was squeezing in obviously the opposite direction. And Riot had been going strong. The whole Bitcoin kind of hype and momentum thing's still been going on. So I just probably wasn't as comfortable trading this. I'm not as familiar with the stock, and I had big size. If I was trading this with smaller size than 5,000 shares, I probably would have done okay. But it's not the typical stock I trade. It's not the typical setup that I would normally try to trade with that sort of size. So I just went a little aggressive maybe on that yesterday with not as much understanding of the play, and I'm not as familiarized with that stock as maybe some others have been who have been more into trading Riot and MARA over the past couple days. So got a little confused, and it popped up. I closed it out, lost 5 grand on it, and then it ends up flushing out as I thought it would. So let's look at why I would want to have been short yesterday on this. Okay, if we look at Riot's daily chart, we were over 3 deviations, so we're kind of in an overbought location is the way that is viewed. And if we look at the 4-hour chart, you'll see that the 4-hour chart, was a little overbought, and we were kind of coming down. So yesterday was sort of the first day that we had seen Bitcoin crash a couple $1,000s per Bitcoin, overnight. So I figured that day was going to be the first day that we'd have at least some of a legit bearish move that didn't get bought into too quickly. And you can even see today it already got bought back. So this sort of movement that we've seen today on Riot shows good strength for the stock. Okay, so for those of you that are long this, I was short yesterday. I got squeezed. I shouldn't have got squeezed the way I did and lost. That was my bad. But the way it's come back today does show some strength, and that means I think we're going to see Riot higher too. All right, so I ended up losing on Riot. Now we'll go into the trades that I did today. So I traded CERC pre-market for 479. I traded PECPERT during the day, lost 10 bucks. Traded ATOM for 216. Traded Sava for 741 loss, which I really shouldn't even have tried to trade, but I was trying to show a couple traders something on YouTube, and then ended up taking a loss, so that was kind of dumb. Traded CYTH pretty well for 1,675. Traded Neo pretty well for 292, and then traded Riot for 545 bucks. So we are going to take a look at those trades. So first one we'll do here is CERC. So CERC was a trade pre-market. So CERC stock this morning jumps up, essentially goes short here in the top, and as it flushes out down to about here, I end up taking the trade off. So really started shorting the tops pre-market on CERC, and then as it kind of flushed down, I just closed out the trade. I think I had maybe 2,000 to 3,000 shares or something like that. Nothing too crazy or too big a size on that. So just a short as the stock got overbought, and as it swings back down, we just close out the trade. Part of the reasons for going short on this today were just the fact it was overbought. It didn't look like it had the momentum. It didn't feel extremely strong. Okay, next one on the list is PEK, which was a really very small trade, so we'll cover it super quick. But basically bought a couple hundred shares here to see if we could do a previous high-a-day breakout. So I only took like 300 shares because I knew it was a high-risk location to be going long. But I'm like, you know what? The momentum kind of feels good. It's already squeezed quite a lot today. Maybe shorts get nervous, and maybe we do break this up. So I'm like, you know what, whatever. I'll try it with 300 shares, but I'm not going to take a big position. It's a high-risk, long location. So if in the event it works, we'll make a little bit of money. It's not going to be life-changing. So I got in here on this pullback. We kind of pushed up. I took them off, and then it pulls back, and then I'm like, this is going to dump. It's probably not going to work. So I closed out for it, losing 10 bucks. All right, next one on the list is ATOM. ATOM was a short. Earlier in the day here, when it had made this move, it was retesting long-term trending resistance. So at the time when we were trading in the day at this price, I knew that I could get away shorting a little top there. So I ended up shorting about 600 shares, starting all in this top. And as we pulled back in this move, I covered the short and I was able to make 216 bucks. If we look at the screen on the right, we might actually be able to see why I did. See, let's see where this price comes in. So we're gonna put a little price level over that blue line there that you see. Let's see where it comes in at. See, you see that? You see how that, it's still accurate, actually, believe it or not. So at the time, you can see this was first attempt, second attempt on long-term resistance. That was what I started shorting into, was the retest of the resistance. So, you know, a lot of traders might have been doing something like this. Hold on one second. You see how we kind of have like a flag pattern here, where it kind of pulls back and then it kind of U-shapes up. You know, a lot of traders might be looking to kind of buy the flag break here, which can work sometimes, you know, but as soon as you're buying this flag break into that long-term resistance, we're just, you know, a lot of us are just selling that move down. Now, this was a day where the stock was strong, so it ended up picking up and continuing higher, but in a lot of situations, like with penny stocks, you know, let's say stock runs up just like this and, you know, probably with more volume or more momentum or something. And so say stock runs up like this, kind of tops, crashes, kind of goes through this like little consolidation and it kind of pops up again. We're usually going to sell right in. Even if we were shorting here, we're just going to sell more into that move as we retest resistance. Usually the weaker hands on the short will get squeezed out and they'll take it off and then it will go. And then sometimes it will keep going and you really get screwed. But a lot of times the second retest will fail. So that's what I shorted into on Atomatm today. So Sava, I'll show you what's up with Sava. The trade would have worked. It was just a low volume stock and I was trying to almost like make a point and just show some trading and some teaching on YouTube. And then I kind of like took big size and it was just dumb. It really was like not a trade that I shouldn't even done. So anyways, Sava at the time gets overbought. We're over 3 deviations. It's probably not going to go higher anymore. So I kind of just start selling into it. And we weren't really on any big long-term resistance marks. We were only on what I would call a subpar resistance, you know, mediocre resistance. And that was this kind of dotted trending line you can see in there. And you can even see the price of Sava hits this trend mark and we sell down. So the trade ended up working. It would have worked if I would have held. I actually would have made, you know, a good trade if I held, but anyways, it is what it is. I just, you know, sucked. I shouldn't have been doing that. But anyway, so took a trade here, just ended up squeezing my own self out. That was it. It just basically took a trade, kind of went against me, and then I just took it off for a loss of 741. I think I was short about 6,000 shares. So I lost a little more than 10 cents on that. Next one is CYTH. So CYTH is where I made a good chunk of money, and then I could have made a lot more money and traded this a lot better, but you know, trading is trading. So I started shorting CYTH early this morning pre-market on this move. So you remember how we were kind of talking about, hey, like this is the first attempt, then it pulls back and then it goes back to the high. Like this is a great example. Let's look at, this is like picture perfect of what I was just explaining on ATOM. Remember, I'm like, hey, that second attempt, we're probably going to sell that. So here's a great example. All right, so look at the right screen. You can see we have this 2 deviation mark resistance. So I knew pre-market, if in the event we kind of ran into these prices, I would be selling it and going short. All right. So if you look at pre-market, it squeezes up, hits this high of $6, comes down, go back up. That's the second time. So that would be this is the first high, but this is the first attempt of breaking out the previous high. Normally fails. So you can see we go up. I start shorting into this move. So I'm kind of shorting this green candle, selling these couple red candles, okay? And then I think I even sold more on this candle to see if we would break down. We didn't. We pushed back up, and I started selling short again on these candles because we're still really on that resistance. So for some traders, they might have looked at this sort of setup and said to themselves, hey, this is like a little cup and handle bull flag, right? They might have been going like this. You know, like here's the U, and then there's the cup, and there's the breakout, so we should be buying there. They're 100% correct. That is sort of a cup and handle setup, and So this is a cup, that's a handle, that's the break point where the momentum in this little move would shift to the upside. Totally right. Granted, if you looking at this sort of strategy we use and get familiarized with it, you would know that there's a 2 deviation resistance mark right at 642. So even though you have what looks to be kind of a good looking cup and handle setup, you're really just kind of pushing up into known resistance. So we're not going to buy long this move because we know there's resistance there, and we're not going to try to break the stock out. We're going to try to respect the resistance and sell it down. And that's exactly what happens here. We go short this move, doesn't break down quite yet. We go for another test, get sold into, and then as it breaks down pre-market, I took off most of my position on this drop. I had 4,000 shares short, I think, and I ended up taking off all of them and holding 500 shares to see if we would fade the rest of the market. Later in the day, it kind of pops up a little bit. I take my shares off. And then I took a little small reshort here of a couple hundred shares, and then it kind of squeezed up again, so I took it off. And then I was like, man, I should be shorting this top, and then I didn't. And then I shorted here, and then like faded this move and made another couple $100. So I ended up making $600 overall. Pretty decent trading for me on CYTH today. Next one on the list is NEO. I'm trying to make this quick. So NEO was a long trade for us today. So this was like the only trade I got to do successfully, maybe with our trading room today. But basically it was a long of 300 shares on NEO. We bought this dip, started buying into these candle lows. You can see how many wicks there were. This one came down, instantly bought up. This one came down, instantly bought up. This one came down, instantly bought up. So there's a bunch of just candles there that just kept getting bought up from the bottom. So from a candlestick perspective, we're kind of like, oh, those wicks are pretty bullish. And then based on volume, there was primarily more buying than there was selling. Right, first candle of the day was a big buy. The following candle volume didn't even beat the previous one. Even though it was a big selling candle, the volume did not beat out the previous green. Following candle is all green. Next candle is pretty much all green. Next candle is pretty much all green. So even though these candles are red, the volume on our system is saying green. So this is a great example to show you guys what our ultimate volume system does. So if you look at, excuse me, let me pull up the bottom one. So if you look at these candles, right, like this one, this candle's red, but it's primarily buying volume. This candle here is red, but it's like 90% buying volume. So pretty cool stuff. So when that dip's happening on NEO, we're looking at the wicks, they're getting bought up. We're looking at our volume system and going, this thing's getting bought. Shouldn't be selling it. We should be buying it. And then if you look in the middle, you know, there was a lot of green relative volume spikes. Green relative volume spike to start this day. You know, green relative volume spike here, green relative volume spike here, green relative volume spike here. So in the mixed here, there was only 2 red relative volume selling ones, but majority of them were green. So that was kind of another sign that, hey, maybe we should be more on the long side of this move. So went long 300 shares, started going long down here, sold majority of it here, sold pretty much most of it here, and then held 50 shares throughout the day that ended up selling it somewhere here. So that was a good trade. And then next one on Riot. So Riot, there were 2 trades for me. So there was a short pre-market. So I started shorting pre-market here with a target of here. So my target on the day on the short pre-market for Riot was 1550. Started shorting up here, and as we got down to 1550, I covered my short and we bounced. And you'd see that the market would base out there for pretty much most of the morning. Had a little dip, then it got bought up. And then I had one more short trade on this, which was a short here during the day, anticipating this market would break down a little bit. So I took a couple thousand shares shorted this, scalped most of it, and just kind of rode down this little pullback and then closed out the trade to get a total of 545 on Riot today. Okay, those are all the trades, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all the trades I made today and from yesterday. So I hope you guys learned something new. I hope you guys like the channel. Again, let me know what you kind of think of this new camera setup. If you guys like this, I'll definitely keep it like this. And the only reason that it's like this, so this camera over here, this one, that is that's my Sony, and that one is a far better camera than this little, you can probably see it from this camera, it's right here. It's a little Logitech camera. So there's no way of me fitting this big DSLR Sony camera in these spaces with having 6 monitors, I can only fit this little Logitech one. So all the good, cameras can only really shoot from this angle over here. So I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And other than that, guys, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.